Hello, this is Richard Carafel from Agility PR Solutions, and welcome to PR Profiles, a video series and podcast where we chat with experts in the PR and communications industry. We think PR is the most formidable, dynamic, and rewarding field there is. And we wanted to introduce you to some of our favorite powerhouses in the industry. We certainly have one today. We are speaking with Karen Swim. She's the president and CEO of Words for Hire and president of Solo PR Pro in Michigan. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Richard. Thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely, always a pleasure. So first of all, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're up to these days.
Sure. As you noted, I actually run two businesses with a lot of love. And I truly, my work is a labor of love. So I have a virtual agency, Words for Hire, and we serve clients mostly in the technology space. And so that includes things like health tech, ed tech, insure tech, fintech, you name a technology, and we probably have clients in that space. And then I also have the joy and pleasure of leading a independent or professional organization for independent practitioners in public relations. And I feel like it's more than a group. These people are truly my colleagues. They are my silent office workers. They're the wind beneath my wings. They're the place that we can all go and share information and best practices. And it's just truly among the smartest and brightest in this profession that are independent. So it's a joy for me. I get as much from them as they get from being members of our group.
That's terrific. That's great. And you're doing some good work there for sure. You've got an impressive list of accomplishments, like the things you just said, running a successful PR firm for over 15 years to leading a large community of other like-minded solopreneurs over at the Solo PR Pro. But you haven't always been in PR. Before becoming the PR powerhouse that you are today, you studied psychology and worked in sales and marketing. So can you tell us a little bit more about your early career and how that led you to transitioning into entrepreneurship?
Absolutely. Surprisingly enough, when, like most people in college, you have a vision about maybe how your career is going to play out. And so I was actually a pre-medical major. And and that background and that skill set has definitely served me well. The care for people, the need to dig deeper and understand beneath the surface are all things that really help you to be a good communicator. Out of college, I, had grown up around healthcare, of course, wanted to go into healthcare. So it was always a love of mine. And I ended up working in managed care and was tapped to lead a sales team by a GM who knew my work. I never thought of myself as a salesperson. It's not a career that I would have picked for myself, but I was tapped because of my expertise in the managed care field and found that I genuinely loved it. As soon as I understood what it was, I had to go and grab a book like, okay, well, this sales thing is like a real profession. Like I never thought of it. And, along the way, I was always fortunate to have really great mentors and leaders who pulled potential out of me, who sometimes could see how my talents could be applied in another discipline. So I really benefited from that because I got to take a lot of chances in my career and I got to have what may seem like a squiggly line, but they really were all connected. And as we now know, marketing and PR are different sides of the same coin, but a lot of the skills and a lot of the things that you learn definitely can be leveraged in either discipline on either side of it.
Good. All right. Thanks for sharing that. Now, so let's say you could go back in time when you first transitioned from your role in marketing to becoming the solopreneur that you are and building Words for Hire. What advice would you give your past self, as well as others who might be in a similar position?
Buckle up, it's going to be a wild ride. I would honestly, if anyone's considering that, I would say consider that this is going to be more about working in your passion. It's going to be more about being a business person. you really have to master. That's the harder part. We know how to do PR. We know those skill sets, whether you worked in an in-house agency or, wherever you worked before, you have that. So you know your profession, you know those things to do. The things that are harder to come by that really are going to create sustainable success is learning how to run a business. And even if it's a business of one, that means getting super comfortable with metrics and numbers and understanding profit and loss for your own business, understanding, negotiations and client management, all of the leadership initiatives. And you will be leading a team in some form or fashion because it's really hard to do this job without any help at all. So even if you have one person on your payroll, or maybe you're working with subcontractor relationships, being a leader and being able to get other people excited and enrolled in the vision are really important. And so I would say keep your eyes open and focus on what's important, because you can always bring in the work and you can always figure out ways to get the work done. It's much harder to actually run the business, continue to create structure for that, and to grow and scale it to fit your personal needs.
Yeah, that's great. A lot of PR pros out there, in-house or agency, probably don't even think that, if you're a solopreneur like you, there's a whole business side to the agency as well, and that's can be equally as challenging. So great, thank you for that. Now we
Sure.
know you've worked alongside Kelly Crane on the solo PR pro community since 2008, and in
Yeah.
2015 you took over the leadership of this valuable resource for PR pros. Can you tell us a little bit more about the community of Solo PR Pro?
I can. It's so Solo PR Pro was created at a time when there was no central way for us to connect with one another. So people were out there, they were kind of doing their own thing and they were feeling kind of alone. They weren't really an agency and they, were different from other entrepreneurs. And so it started off with a Twitter chat. Well, let's create some community. Let's come together over Twitter and have a Twitter chat. And we ended up having what was one of the longest running chats for Twitter. And then that grew as we saw additional needs and identified that there were different things that we could support the community with. So it went from a Twitter chat to then adding a blog where we could share resources and best practices, and then became a full-on membership community when we realized that people like us needed resources designed by us and for us. And so that really became our mission, to not take away from some of the other professional organizations, but to come alongside and to complement those things that were really unique to the Solo PR Pro experience. And it's continued to go on because of the community that really has become family. No matter how many members we add, no matter, when people change careers, or sometimes they come in and out. So they may, go from being a solo to going in-house for a while and then they come back. You always are part of this wonderful family of people that's really invested in your success. And I think that that's really unique, particularly in this day and age.
Certainly so. Yeah, all right. Good. Now, can you tell us something that you're really excited about for the future of the solo PR community?
I am. I'm excited that PR is in such high demand at every level. And I feel like we're coming into this awakening of our value. We're not just earned media people, but we really are being recognized for what we bring to the strategy of an organization. And it's a wonderful time to be in PR, and it's a wonderful time to be an entrepreneur. So we're at this intersection where overall the pandemic accelerated people taking the leap into their own businesses. And so that's really becoming very mainstream, and people are really understanding what that means and embracing it. And entrepreneurs are being utilized by big companies. But then to be a PR entrepreneur, it's such an exciting time because the demand for our services is so incredibly high. And so that excites me that our solos now sit at the opportunity to create the business that they desire, whether that's remaining, small and independent and taking on those passion projects, or growing as big as you want to. It's the landscape is very exciting, and I see nothing but positive things for PR people.
Oh, that's great. What an optimistic outlook. That's awesome. Thank you. And so how about this? What do you think the future of the PR profession is going to look like, whether that's solo practitioners like yourself or others. Do you think we'll see more PRs taking their rightful place at the leadership table? Or are there any skills you'd recommend that the PR pros start to develop to future-proof themselves?
I do. One of the things that I'm so adamant about, and it feels like we shouldn't be saying this about future proofing because I feel like we've been singing this song for a long time, but I think that PR people in general have to get a lot more comfortable with metrics and with numbers. We've shied away from that and we want to lean on into it's an art and it's not quite a science and the things that we do are not guaranteed, and all of that is true. But I believe that the great PR person in the future, the way that you win your seat at the table is by mirroring exactly what other executives at that table are bringing. You have to understand how you deliver value that can be quantified to an organization. And so I think that means getting really super comfortable in talking in terms of making those connections between the work that you do and how they drive the business forward. We are going to have to get really comfortable with our role in revenue generation because we do it. We're just not comfortable making those connections. And I think that future proofing means get comfortable with it, learn about metrics, learn how to use data, learn how to interpret that data in a meaningful way to an organization. And that is going to set you apart. Of course, I do think that we're also going to see some evolution of the PR function to some degree. We have all of these separated siloed disciplines, but we live in a space right now, particularly now with hybrid work and people not being in a centralized hub, where I do believe that it requires a little more agility. So, in my mind, that means that you have to get a little more comfortable working outside of your traditional function and be able to play in some of the other disciplines because it's going to be more about bringing holistic value to the role that we have and not being stuck in such a narrow niche.
Good. Those are great insights there. And you really tapped into in the first part of that with the data and metrics, the PR person's fear of math, and how that's an obstacle that you're just going to have to face now, face your fears, right? Okay.
Yes.
So, Kieran, what's the best thing for you about being in communications?
I love that it brings together so many of the things that I'm passionate about, people, really connecting and understanding. And it goes beyond my clients. Our audiences are so diverse, and it's so fascinating to me to understand what they're thinking about, what moves them, and then being able to connect my clients' messages to where the needs are in the market. And so, if you're a people person, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, I think that this is the best career. And then to be able to really set the tone for organizations, to really be able to help them to find who they are and just construct key messaging around that to be able to tell that story to the world. And then finally, that, I love ethics, and I am just going to be completing my second 3-year term on PRSA's National Board of Ethics and Professional Standards at the end of this year. And PR plays a huge role in helping companies to establish an ethical foundation. And so that strength really plays out in better customer relationships, fewer challenges to the organization, in a better company culture, better recruiting and retention, and better sales dollars. And so I think all of those things, being able to really sort of be the little glue that can hold all of these pieces together, is very exciting about PR. And I think it's things that people overlook because sometimes people think of us as just the media people, but we do so much more than that.
Well, isn't that true? The integrated function is really catching on, and it's becoming tantamount, to success these days. So good. A lot of great advice that you just gave. Appreciate that. And so let me ask you, what advice would you give to students or people that are just starting out in comms?
I would say definitely don't be afraid to network with people that are in the profession. I love the students who will reach out on LinkedIn, have a conversation, ask about their work that they do, because these skills can be applied in so many different ways across so many different industries. So it's a good idea to get exposed to different aspects of the profession and how PR professionals are doing their day-to-day work so that you can really begin to fine-tune those skill sets that are going to be most meaningful in your career direction. I mean, PR is really broad. So understanding where you really want to focus and where you really want to specialize is really helpful. So talk to people, ask if you can shadow people, get the insight on what they're doing day to day. I love the people that are in PRSSA and they want to intern with you. That's a beautiful way to really learn on the job. Seek out those learning opportunities. And even if you're not, there's no chapter at your school, or maybe you don't want to, join a chapter, that's okay too. You still should cultivate those relationships early on, even while you're still in school, or even if you're just thinking about making a pivot into career, because they will really help to clarify some things for you and to set you up for success.
That's terrific. Those are great advice for newcomers and students. Appreciate that, Karen, very much. Now, how can people connect with you and your companies?
So I am on social media everywhere as Karen Swim. And so you can find me there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere, even TikTok, actually, but I don't post. I'm just a stalker who loves to dance to the music and sing the songs, but I haven't posted anything yet. And then for Solo PR Pro, we're at Solo PR everywhere. You can go to our website, soloprpro.com. And if you are an indie PR person, we definitely want to know you. If we don't know you yet, please reach out and introduce yourself, because we love connecting our community.
That's great. Awesome, Karen. Thank you. So that's all the time we have today. Again, we've been chatting with Karen Swim. She's the president and CEO of Words for Hire and president of Solo PR Pro in Michigan. Thanks for joining us today, Karen. Always great to talk with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a joy to connect with you as well.
All right, wonderful. So we hope you enjoyed this episode of PR Profiles, brought to you by Agility PR Solutions. We got some exciting news for you over at Agility PR and Bulldog Reporter this month. The 2022 Crisis Comms Mastery Virtual Summit is now open for registration. You can hear from world-class experts who will spill their secrets on how to prepare for, respond to, and resolve a crisis like a PR master. All right, you can head over to crisiskommsmastery.com to learn more and register for free. All right, thanks again to Karen. I'm Richard Carafel with Bulldog Reporter. Appreciate you tuning in. We look forward to seeing you back for our next episode.